Agencies Drinking Beer is brought to you by Proposify, software that helps you deliver beautiful proposals in the cloud and close more deals.
Welcome to the 44th episode of Agencies Drinking Beer. On today's show, we're talking with Aaron Whitman from AbleSense Media. He's going to tell us about how he is using Shopify to build recurring revenue within his agency. How's that bourbon tasting, Kevin?
Very delicious.
We are recording this on a lovely Tuesday evening.
And it's kind of sunny out.
It's sunny out for here. It's really nice. You're sipping on bourbon. You're giving me some sort of weird chocolate beer.
That is a Sleeman's dark chocolate lager. Come on.
It's basically hot chocolate cooled off.
Back home, there was something called Pete's Wicked Ale.
Can I pour a little of this in your bourbon?
No, please.
You try it?
No, you'll ruin my bourbon. It's Maker's Mark bourbon.
You're on a diet, right?
I'm on a special bourbon, all bourbon diet.
Because I watched you scarf down a sausage or a bacon and egg wrap.
Bacon and
today.
eggs, okay. I had the wheat on the wrap.
And there's probably lots of carbs in that sauce. But I can't judge.
No, it's okay. Once in a
say
while,
you're
I
on
fall,
a diet, I'm
I
just
fall
saying.
off the wagon. You know.
Well, we have a very interesting show lined up. We haven't recorded the interview yet, so we believe so far it's scheduled. We're going to do this with Aaron Whitman in a couple of days, assuming that doesn't fall through. So we're going to have an interview coming up with Aaron Whitman, which hopefully is interesting. I don't know. We haven't recorded it yet. It should be. In the meantime, though, we have a question from listeners.
Are you kidding me?
We do.
I'm excited.
And I want to say it in Ray Romano's voice.
In a 50-50 partnership,
No, I won't do that.
No, please don't.
I don't know.
Sound more like Kermit.
I'm Raymond. Everybody loves Raymond.
No. Stop now.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on.
No, you do.
It's a new one. I'm still working
Let's
on
work
it.
on that. Yeah.
It's not too bad. Anyway, this was asked by Taylor Swift. I don't know. Some Taylor. I don't know the last name. And I believe he says, in a 50-50 partnership, what is the best way to manage the roles of the business to help it run the most efficiently? So there's a few questions here. Just let me get through it. Or should all decisions be made as a team, or should specific roles be designated? So he's in general talking about partnerships with your business partner. How do you guys balance your partnership and keep it healthy? How would you navigate a situation like ours with one partner being full-time and the other being minimal time? If you guys have ever run into trouble or tension within your partnership or previous partnerships, how did you manage to bring it back to healthy? I'm hoping that these are the right questions, but maybe they're not. Overall, we are wanting to keep our business and partnerships healthy and efficient for Salt Foundry, which is, I believe, the name of their business, for us as brothers. I guess they're brothers, too.
Interesting. I wonder if the one that's not working there much is like an investor. More so, like you usually want each to have stake in it, like the same amount of stake in the company.
I don't think they're investors. I think they're actually brothers.
So one of them's full-time, one's part-time.
Yeah, the other one probably has a job and they don't have enough money yet to bring them on
That
full-time.
could be it. That could be it, yeah.
So probably that's it. So how do you guys balance your partnership and keep it? So the first question is, what's the best way to manage the roles and help it run efficiently, and how do you make decisions as partners? And should there be specific roles designated?
Well, you know the answer to that.
Well, for us, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
absolutely.
We have specific roles. That's important. When we were running Headspace, generally anything related to production or how the donuts get made, whether that's how an app is built for a client or how it's designed or what the process looks like, that was my role. You are free to chime in with your thoughts.
And I always enjoyed going to the client meetings too, bringing in the client and then going to the meetings. It was almost like a transitioning them over to you often. And, and sometimes it was funny because you were the person that was driving the design, the layout and all that. And we were there that meeting was really for you. But it's funny, the clients would look at me because they knew me and like, oh, does that sound like a good idea? And like, oh yeah, keep listening to Kyle.
That hasn't changed either, because we went in today because I just bought a car, and I you're kind of my You're kind of my daddy. I don't have anymore.
no.
I don't have a dad anymore.
Don't call me that, please. I feel old.
No, but like when I'm going to buy a car, I'm like, Kevin, can you come with me? Help me negotiate. Make sure I'm not getting ripped off.
Nice.
So anyway, I mean, I was clearly the one actually buying the car, and the guy still, when we're sitting down to do paperwork, he's looking at you and
There's
not
one
looking
reason.
at me.
There's only one reason, you know that.
Why?
Because I have gray in my hair and in my beard.
Maybe so. I think people respect you more. How could they respect me?
What are you kidding me?
But
No respect.
with you, it was, things that related to sales, new business, operational, financial, legal stuff. That's your department. So, I mean, yeah, we work together and make big decisions together, but it's very important that each person has their own role that they own, and that you make it clear between the two of you that, when it comes to design or, what our logo looks like or whatever, that's your job. I can tell you I don't like it or I think it should be this way, but ultimately it's your decision.
I remember when we started Proposify or Pitch Perfect way back in the day, I remember one of our friends saying, wait a minute, you guys were partners before and you're partners again? Well, yeah. It's worked out,
But the other question is, how do you navigate, have you ever run into trouble or tension, and how did you bring it back? And I think we had a few issues in the past, not major ones, but a few ones. Actually, it's probably enough time has passed that we can joke about it now. But I remember one time, I was such an asshole. There was some meeting, it might have even just been a regular weekly meeting or something, and you weren't there for it, and you didn't email or call or say that you weren't going to be there, and I left a voicemail for you, and I was just like, man, you weren't there. I was really pissed off at you. And then you called back.
Oh, wait. I got to back up. I remember, what you said? You said, if you're not into the company, not into the business,
I don't even remember saying that.
I remember that because normally I'd be like, oh, whatever. But I remember that. I was like, whoa, it's blown out of proportion.
Yes, I overreacted a little bit. Jeez, just fucking quit the whole company then.
Yeah,
Why
something
don't you?
like that.
Yeah.
So you were just having a bad day.
But what actually happened? You collapsed. You had thought you had a heart attack.
Yeah, exactly. I was in the hospital.
Yeah. So I felt like quite the ass.
And
I was quite the ass. You're going to run into trouble. You're going to have tension, personality conflict from time to time. I think the key is, what is the key? I don't know the key.
If I may say, the key is to, listen, like anything when you're communicating. I've had people say, what's the key to success in business or anything? In any relationship, whether it's your spouse, your business partner, or anybody, it's being able to really understand and listen. And sometimes don't say shit, just listen. And I tend to have a bit of verbal diarrhea every once in a while. You think about when we first met even. We were opposites, from beliefs to you name it. But there's a certain...
I was a believer at the time.
But there's a certain chemistry that...
You corrupted me.
I did. No, but there's a certain chemistry, I think, that people have, whether it's your brothers or partners, that's worth giving. It's give and take. And if it's worth giving, hey, listen, I'm going to be very patient here because we can do something great. And if you think that way, you'll be successful as a partnership.
Very nice.
Well, it's come from the heart.
There's tears. You can't see it, but there's tears. No, that's good. Yeah, so, it's going to be different with everybody no matter what, because if ultimately you guys don't get along and you're just very different people and you don't see eye to eye, then maybe it's not for the best, but why would you get into business anyway? I've had people approach me, and you've probably had the same, that approached you to kind of go into business together, and you spend some time with them for a while, and once you get a sense that there's no fit, you just don't get into business. Yeah. I don't really know how people can get into business with a partner without really knowing who they are.
Yeah, and
it's a big step.
It is a big step. It's like a marriage. And one thing I want to say too is this person. What's the name again? Sorry.
Taylor.
Sorry, Taylor. A little bourbon today.
More than a little.
I've had an experience in the past where, it sounds like you're doing most of the work, and I don't know the situation, but maybe that your partner, your brother, has to, like Kyle said, has to go and work a job, and hopefully, I'm sure the ultimate goal is for you to both make a living doing your business. But I had a partnership where, I was a bit of an enabler, and I was doing everything, and I just kept doing it, and I was just basically getting resentful to the point where, really, at the end of the day, the reason why I don't have a relationship with these people is I look back at it, it's my fault. I should have spoke up. I was really young. I was in my 20s, and I should have said, hey, listen, you guys aren't pulling your weight. Can you help me here? But instead, I would just go ahead and do the job. And that was back when I had Norton's, and I was doing everything. It was to the point where I burned out.
Yeah.
You want to definitely avoid that.
Well, there's a difference, too, between the stake that somebody has in the company and how much they do. Because if, like, for example, if this person is working full-time and the other one's not, I mean, who knows? Maybe their arrangement is 50-50 when it comes to ownership of shares. And that's fine, because you can have somebody who's just like an outsider who just puts in some money and they own the share. It doesn't matter what they do. They don't have to do anything.
True.
Other than put in money. But when it comes to what you're taking out as a salary, well, I would say that the one who's working full-time should be making more or double than the person who's not.
Yeah, that wasn't the case back then.
Yeah.
So, but I hear, definitely you're bang on with that. But yeah, that wasn't the case. But hey, that happens. And, just look forward to maybe getting some more feedback from you,
Yeah.
Yeah, see how it's going.
Cool. Well, hopefully that helped Taylor and anybody else who's listening who is talking about partnerships. You know what? I feel like I was talking to somebody about this. Totally left me. I was just talking to somebody about partnerships. About like leaving a partnership, but maybe that's for another time.
Yeah, that could be a blog post.
Could be.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, let's now see. I don't know for sure if we have this interview. Like, it's lined up.
You said it was lined up.
It is lined up, but anything could happen between now and then. We didn't have it already.
How about we give a bit of background on this guy? I mean, we worked with him years ago. Actually, when we first met.
Do you know
talk about partnerships?
Yeah, maybe this could be the conclusion. What we're saying right now.
Good idea.
Aaron, actually, when I really think about it, Aaron is in a way responsible for me and you meeting. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
There's this company that Kevin and I met at called Modern Media. I don't know if I can say their name. I'm not saying anything bad about them. They're a great company here in Halifax that does web design work and that kind of thing. And Aaron was a developer there, and he told my friend Chad, who I used to work at an agency called Impact, and Chad was a designer there. He knew Aaron. Chad knew I was looking for work. Aaron said, "Yeah, they're looking for a designer." So that was why I applied to Modern Media. I got a job at Modern Media, and guess who was Captain Sales at Modern Media? Kevin. So there you go.
Very cool.
It all goes back to Aaron.
Aaron. Thank you, Aaron.
All right. So, now let's jump into the interview with Aaron Whitman. I'd like to welcome Aaron Whitman to the show today. Aaron is the president of AbleSense Media here out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, and AbleSense is a digital agency that specializes in e-commerce. So welcome here live to the show.
Thank you, Kyle. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here in person.
Yes, glad to be here. A little blast from the past and some nice space that you guys have moved into here.
That's right. You used to work at Salter Street, which was like a media film company, right?
They were a film company, a fully integrated film company that got into new media kind of late 90s when everybody was doing that. And it was in this was some of the space that they had moved into, and glad to see it's got such nice continuance with another great company in Proposify. So.
Just jerks took over here.
It happens.
That's what happened.
It happens.
So actually, I was telling Kevin this earlier. We recorded the intro, so I was talking to Kevin about this little 7 degrees of separation here. In a lot of ways, I credit you with Proposify existing in some ways.
Well, it's nice to get that recognition. Is this because you wouldn't have met Kevin if it wasn't for you and me meeting? Is that how it went down?
Well, he goes even more deep and convoluted than that. I was working as a designer at a place called Impact here. Okay. and I was friends with Chad Brown, or I worked with Chad Brown, another designer there. He knew I wasn't really happy there, and I was looking for something else. So I think he asked you, or you said to him, like, hey, Modern Media is looking for a designer. So then he got me to apply.
Right, yeah.
And then I applied, I got the job, and Kevin was there, and I think you left right before I started. So that's how Kevin and I met.
I remember that kind of like tag in, tag out. I remember that Chad had connected us and socially once or twice, at the bar or something. And I remember as you arrived, I was kind of like, hey, have a great time.
I was really mad too when I came. I was like, where's Aaron? And they're like, nah, he posseed out.
That was a tough time for, I think, for me. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was on my own for a while and really wanted to be on a team. And I think that was just, great people. For whatever reason, it didn't go long term there. But those guys are doing great. You see them around and, years later. So anyway, so then you and Kevin met and the rest is history.
It is.
And you're making history.
Well,
so
and
you know where to send the royalties.
Exactly. We'll work something out. We'll call the lawyer. But I mean, you've been doing some pretty exciting stuff yourself in the years since you started AbleSense. You've been running that how long now?
Since 2010. So we've just cracked into our 7th year, which is interesting.
We didn't last that long in the agency business. We lasted 5 years. So you're doing well.
Dog with a bone sometimes, I guess. It's a lot of fun to have that self-determination and as much as you can in this business, but also just growing the team. So I like the idea of having a group of people who are talented and get to do good work, even though, sometimes you got to do the stuff that you got to do to pay the bills. But that's kind of what's kept me going, because as you and probably everybody else that's been on this show knows, it's not the easiest thing to do in your career to just be in the agency business, but it can be really rewarding. And so more good than bad over the years for sure.
Yeah. Did you go? I'm trying to think if you went somewhere else after Modern Media, or did you go just right into entrepreneurship?
No, I had dipped my toes in the water as an independent for a while, and I didn't like that. I really like being on a team. Yeah. And so I actually went and kind of had a management capacity at another firm, Optio, who was here in Halifax, and they kind of specialized in the dental industry. And worked there with that crew, a bunch of really talented guys and girls and men and women, and there were no animals, but humans. So that was a lot of good experience for me there too. So I'd done a few other little things along the way, kind of as a hired gun developer. Fun things. I don't want to bore you to death with all of that, but basically, startups that worked and startups that didn't work.
Yeah. That's par for the course.
Yep.
Who was when you decided you wanted to build a team and you didn't want to be an independent, what was the first hire that you made? Was it a designer and another developer? It
was a designer who I had worked with before, a guy named Troy Woodland. And Troy is a really talented, multidisciplinary designer. And he's a real workhorse and a fun guy. So we had worked together actually at Optio, and he had been there he was there before me, and was looking for something different to do about a year after, 6 months after I started AbleSense. And prior to that, I had been calling in favors with every freelance designer I knew and say, hey, I've got a project, are you available? Doing that thing, bootstrapping.
Not really a favor though, you're paying them.
Yeah, yeah.
You did pay them, right?
We did pay. we paid big. No, it just feels like it feels that way, though, I think, when you're starting out, because people are kind of hitching their wagon to your little enterprise, and your reputation is benefiting from their reputation, and hopefully it's mutual. But
I think when you start an agency too, or you're planning on it, it's always, usually you start with contractors and then you work your way up to your first hire, and there's always that little bit of insecurity around talking to clients like, oh, I'm going up against this other agency that has a posh office and tons of staff, and here I am like working in my basement with
Yeah.
2 other contractors.
Absolutely. So getting out of the basement was huge too. It's hard to have employees in your basement. I'm sure people can do it. I couldn't. I couldn't be by myself in the basement anymore. But a big thing that I found was, I had worked at a almost 20 head count agency in a management capacity, and we had some fairly big clients from bigger cities, and I knew a little bit what that was like. And so I never intended to kind of replicate that at first. I thought I would be more like some kind of consultant working with 5 clients on retainer basis. But what happened was, well, everybody just expected full service.
Yeah.
And we went with, everything except TV and radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was good, and you kind of realize that you might have this vision, but there's a market, and the market has expectations too. And not everybody's going to just forge a new market right away. So, yeah, so the first hire was huge, though. I mean, you have to do it. You probably need to do it sooner than you think you need to do it. And the whole, hire people smarter than you and more talented than you, all that cliche, that all applies. Absolutely. In my experience. And also, you got to kind of hire fast and fire fast sometimes. Fit's important.
Oh, yeah.
And, over the years I've run into that where sometimes it takes you way too long to hire the right person, and sometimes it takes you way too long to make a change if there's not a fit. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure
firing's not fun.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's easy to put off.
Yeah.
Like, oh, maybe they'll get better.
Maybe. And, I don't think I've ever hired anybody I didn't like either, which is the added,
you feel you're friends with them.
You've got to be, you're the boss, but you've got to separate that.
No, you're friends, goddammit.
Well, yeah. Good point. It's not about that though, right? It's about creating conditions for everybody to do good work and be fulfilled a little bit in the work they do.
Same thing as if you hire, let's say Proposify hires AbleSense to do a job, right? Or, whatever. You have a friend who runs a business and you kind of patronize them and use their services. That's kind of how I view it. Like, you can be friends, but it doesn't necessarily mean you make a good business, there's a good business relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's probably hard enough between companies, but within a company, I think there's a new level of complexity there where, if you hired AbleSense and then said, you know what, we don't need any more work from AbleSense, it's not like we'd have no other prospects.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's true.
And that's.
But employees can find other work too.
Yeah,
if they're good, unless they're terrible, in which case.
It's. I often look at it as there's a lot of blame to go around when things don't work out. You're supposed to be putting people in positions to succeed as much as you can, and that's not always easy, especially at a small size. We were 7 people. We're 7. Yeah, we've got an aim to be. I feel like there's going to be a phase change around 15 people where all of a sudden the office space that's available becomes better and, all that kind of stuff. I think we're kind of at a size where you really don't benefit from a lot of economies of scale. That sounds so obvious when you say it out loud, but
maybe clarify what you mean by that. Do you mean the fact that, like, if you've got a 100-person agency and your margins are 10%, 20% if you're lucky, essentially that's a lot of cash rolling in the agency.
Yeah, I don't know if you're acting as nimbly or as all the 100-person agencies are all gonna throw tomatoes here.
Please do.
Look, it's a different game at a different level. I know some executives and principals of bigger agencies, and there's no question they have to feed the machine. They need bigger accounts. They need bigger budgets. They need bigger teams. The stakes are high, for sure. And somewhere before that is a size where you can still be a little bit more nimble, and you don't have to slay all the big dragons. But you can find office space that makes sense, that isn't, like the leftover closet from the 100-year-old building that's full of asbestos, that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because when you really think of it, I mean, even a 15, 20 person agency isn't that big at the end of the day compared to some, but it's definitely a different culture than 5 to 10.
You need to act bigger than a bunch of freelancers. You know, you see these things in a lot of markets where the freelancers band together to like basically, hey, here's an opportunity 3 of us can go after, or 2 of us, or 5 of us, and you know they forge those relationships. You know that's kind of. I think that's misleading to the marketplace, and you know the cohesiveness of the team isn't really there. But it's hard for the marketplace to distinguish between that and a 7-person agency.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, maybe a little bit more structure to some degree. I mean, freelancers can be very unpredictable too. I've worked with some in the past, and oh my God, I mean, they're almost known for, if you don't find a good one, just the disappearing in the middle of a project. I mean, that happens a lot.
Absolutely. The other thing that I found, I don't know, I'm a bit of, get off my lawn kids kind of moment here, I guess, is coming, but
do it in an old man voice.
yeah, like I always thought that you should earn as much money as humanly possible in your 20s and play hard too. Like take your vacation, like of course. I'm finding a lot of freelancers in their 20s right now are kind of like, I don't really need to work for a little while. And you're like, here's a great opportunity in a silver platter. It's good budget. You've got the time to do it. And they're like, I'm not really working this month. And you're just I just think, oh my gosh, guys, come on. Like, what are you going to do when there's a real lull? Wouldn't you like to have some bank?
Yeah.
So you could go surfing then or whatever. Nothing against surfing, by the way. Just, yeah.
But it might be harder to, especially when you're a freelancer, I think you have to think long term a little bit. Of course, you don't have like a pension and all the kind of like long term stuff, or maybe you don't think about it. But I mean, really, when you're 50, are you still going to be a freelance web designer? I don't know.
Well, are you going to be a 3-person studio like Andy Clark? Maybe, but not everybody can be Andy Clark. Yeah. Not everybody can be Mark Zuckerberg.
But when you build something of value and you sort of hire yourself out of a job, I think that's the goal, hopefully, of every agency owner, is to get a great team, put it together, have an awesome sales strategy, and let the thing run without you.
Yeah, it's really rewarding when you have to be away and you come back and you find that things still happened. Yeah. And that's one of the things that really makes you feel good about it. I've got some really good people on my team who take care of business, and it's not like they don't need me, but sometimes they don't need me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it can be. I think this is the hardest thing with in a small agency, especially, is because you're probably the primary sales guy, right? Yeah. So when your clients come to you, they're looking for Aaron. I had this all the time at Headspace. Was sometimes people would be like, that I was the one going out for the coffees and lunches with them. So then when we start the project, they're like, I want you involved. I want to email you to ask you questions. And it's like, no, here's the team. Like, got to move on to the next.
So our kind of client services people, we tend to call them producers, which is kind of a term that gets used in lots of different ways. I always talk about the role as being like putting on the 10 o'clock news. When you're online or when you're doing a campaign, whatever it is, it's a little bit like that live performance moment. And you need somebody there who knows enough about what everyone's doing to let the experts do their thing, but just to make sure the damn thing goes off without a hitch. And that's kind of how we build up our client service people. And once the clients get a taste of that, they don't really want to talk to you. Not about that. They love to talk about new business, and sometimes they even care about what I think, but strategically, which is the correct role, I think, for a principal. Yeah. And so you just got to make that handoff, and it really helps when you've got great people to hand it off to. So
so essential. So when you just confirmed my suspicion that you're the primary salesperson for your company. So what do you look for, like in terms of, do you have a perfect ideal client or a persona of like, this is the client that I go after? What kind of does your business development process look like?
Yeah, we can't be too choosy, I don't think. I'm not sure anybody can be too choosy. So we're fairly open-minded, but we really hate, working for jerks. But sometimes jerks have budget and clearly defined goals and everything, and you're like, wow, we should probably do that. And so you have to be a little dispassionate about it. But ideally, you get people who just respect the fact that we've got skills to bring and perspective, and we can help them solve their expensive problems, and we can create more value than they spend, engaging our firm. So within that, we really don't like subbing out to other agencies, bigger agencies. And there's just too much communication channel conflict there. So we always want direct relationships with the client. And, we like our clients to be organizations that we can continue to work with over time. We also really love it when our clients have internal marketing resources. We don't really do marketing. We do strategy, we do creative, we do a bunch of technical stuff, obviously. We software for the web and complex integrations and those kind of things that make some kind of business objective happen. But when it gets down to, if client side, just goes through a revolving door of interns that they hand the keys to the content management system and social media to, that's usually not a good fit for us. We spend a lot of time kind of telling them they're doing it wrong or undoing things, and we try to make it palatable, but at the end of the day, if you're not marketing on purpose and you're not building your brand on purpose and you're not engaging your customer base on purpose, we're probably not a good agency to work with, because it's going to be driving us crazy, first of all, and also that's where we bring value. We're not a skilled set of hands to just do whatever. I mean, you can, if you want to be a content mill, there's lots of places to get that. We can't really bring better value there. So we're always evaluating. It's not just during the project or during when we're meeting people for the first time. And we've walked away from business that we probably could have won, where we always try to save something for the actual engagement. We don't do all the solution design during the pitch. But you can tell that they don't understand what it is you're going for, and maybe we don't understand them. That's fair too. I mean, we try our best to know what they're all about and what will work for them. But sometimes people just don't get it, or they get sticker shock, and they don't understand that if we're doing it right, they're going to make so much more money than they spend with AbleSense. And some people aren't really ready for that yet. So I didn't answer your question at all. I gave you all of the non-answers to that question, but by exclusion, we like people who really understand that they're hiring a group of professionals who are going to bring a lot of value, and that this investment they're making is investment in their business. I mean, if you're not doing digital right, and you're not doing e-commerce right, and you have the kind of business that e-commerce can benefit, you don't really have a business at all.
It's like how many websites I've built them in the past, or had clients that were like government agencies or government departments, and you always ask. I mean, as the designer, strategist, whoever, you want to feel like you're bringing them ROI. So you're like, what's the conversion? Like, how do we know that we've done our job? Is it when somebody buys something? And then you get these vague, like, oh, it's when somebody views our newsletter, or somebody views our about page.
We're counting likes.
Yeah.
Can you take likes to the bank?
It's really hard to measure, like, if you've done anything for their business.
Well, not with e-commerce, and that's actually a nice thing. So with e-commerce, we can really point to, all right, here's sales volume before, here's sales volume after. There's all kinds of experiments you can do, and even sometimes we'll bring in like pay-per-click experts from the outside, because we don't really do that. I mean, we understand analytics well and all that sort of thing.
But that's a specialty.
It's a special thing. Yeah. But the pitch with any of those kind of consultants is, we're going to show you how to spend money and make and make return on it. And we're going to demonstrate it. And if it doesn't work, well, we're going to pivot or shut it down altogether. But ultimately, we can measure it. So we'll often set goals. Like we set a goal last year with one of our clients that we're going to double e-commerce revenue in the next 12 months. And they say, great, that sounds terrific. How are you going to do that? And I said, well, you're going to listen very carefully because we're going to let the data tell us what's going on here. So we're going to come up with our best ideas. We're going to try them out, and we're going to keep running and extend the ones that do well and shut down the ones that don't. And usually in that first year, there's enough low-hanging fruit that you can pull off, that kind of a, especially at the scale they're at. If they were at $10 million, we're gonna take you to $20 million this year, just because this company was small enough online that it was feasible, and there was enough low-hanging fruit. And it sounds opportunistic by me, but really what it does is it creates a taste for them of, oh wow, this can really work. And, we do a lot more business outside of Nova Scotia now because of e-commerce. And one of the things that I've found is in bigger markets, the idea of spending money to make money is never a question. And in here in Nova Scotia, sometimes there's a little bit of survival mode sets in. Like, wouldn't it be better just to maintain revenue and cut costs next year? And I think if you're in a part of the world like this where it's not, there's no mega city and there's no, that's natural. And, we want to break through that sometimes and show people there's a way. But what's really cool about e-commerce is it's an international service offering for us now. We have clients in Australia, throughout Europe and the United States. So yeah, it's been really good.
And that's where, so it sounds like you're going after that horizontal. So you don't really focus on any particular industry vertical, but it's like, if you make money off the web or you sell products on the web, then you can help. And what was it about Shopify as a platform that made you decide to use that over, say, BigCommerce, right, or Magento, Etsy? What was it about Shopify that you decided to kind of build your a part of your company?
Yeah, I would say we have a Shopify practice. We're Shopify partners, we're Shopify experts. We build Shopify apps to extend their platform. And one of the, you make decisions for a lot of reasons. I'd built my own shopping carts in the past, and just threw PayPal at the end for transaction processing. Worked with a lot of different ones over the years. I've been making websites for a living since 1998, so 88, that would have been something.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Well, nobody knew about it back then.
Pioneer, yeah.
Yeah.
Before Tim Berners.
Yeah, no, I think he predated that. But.
Did he? All right.
Anyway, so
you've been making.
We've been banging our head against all kinds of things we shouldn't have to for a long time. But I think the guys at Shopify figured out a couple of pain points and just solved them really well. It's not like the platform is without challenges. There's things you want it to do or merchants want it to do that don't come out of the box.
Really?
They've got an API that lets us solve those things and build apps to do it.
What would be an example of that?
The other thing is a SaaS platform, they're always adding stuff, rolling it out. So one thing it doesn't do is a concept of cost of goods sold. Okay. And one of the reasons for that is cost of goods sold, it's really tricky. It depends on your accounting policies and all that kind of stuff. So if you're managing inventory on Shopify, you have the ability to do one set of inventory through online, all your in-person sales, point of sale, all these different channels. So there's a race. I'm going to buy the last coffee mug. I've added it to my cart, but you've walked in the brick and mortar store and you've actually picked up the last one. And by the time I hit checkout online, it says, "Oh, sorry, there was an inventory change during your checkout." So that connected one inventory thing, that's a very basic example. That's all built in, and it's really awesome. But here's the problem. We've had clients walk away from the platform, prospective clients, because they say, well, look, in my brick and mortar shop, my staff are authorized to discount down to a floor, based on a number of scenarios. Maybe a customer walks in with a flyer from a competitor and says, "Can you match this price?" Maybe they're a loyal customer and you can get them to buy a little bit sooner if you tell them that today we're going to be able to do a better price for you. And these are trained sales professionals who are really good at maybe it's motorcycle parts or musical instruments or something that they've got domain expertise over. And if you use Shopify, there's no way in the system to see what the cost in inventory for that item is to tell your staff what they can sell down to. Right. So the solution is you have a price list off to the side. There's ways around it. And it's one of those things that probably in some future release, it'll just appear. They already have the concept of inventory orders coming in. So, hey, a new shipment of microphones and coffee mugs are coming in. It's this many on this date. They just don't let you put a unit price on that shipment. And the day that happens, a whole bunch of people are going to be really happy.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it can't be, nothing's perfect. I mean, we know we're a SaaS provider and people want certain things, and it's just whether they aren't going to do it or it'll take some time to do. I mean, I used, a long time ago, I actually had a client at Headspace that used BigCommerce, and I tried to convince him to switch over to Shopify because I looked at the markup and it was just like fucking horrendous. And Shopify actually does a really nice job of like theming and using like, I think it's Liquid, right? To generate the dynamic information.
And there's lots to like about Liquid. It's hard for, I would say, less experienced programmers or interface implementers to make horrible mistakes and security flaws and all that. I guess the big thing too is, if you're hosting your own e-commerce today, you're doing it wrong. If you're building your own shopping cart today, you're doing it wrong. It doesn't have to be Shopify. There's BigCommerce, there's Magento, there's Volusion, there's other options out there. What I liked about it was they created something too. They're a bit of a thing, if you will. The train has left the station and it's going really well.
And they're a public company.
Well, it's funny. So I was just at Shopify's first ever partner conference in March in San Francisco, which was an interesting choice of venue because they're based in Ottawa, of course. Yeah. But they understand the ecosystem they really want to be in is in that Silicon Valley type environment. And everybody was fine to go. There was tons of Canadians that went. There was people from India, Australia. It was a real magnet for Shopify partners. And at the event, their CEO, Toby, he said, one of the best things about going public was everyone who works at Shopify kind of feels legitimized now, like we're actually for real. And I thought that was kind of funny because from the outside, everyone could tell they were for real. I honestly believe what will become the best benefit of going public for them is legitimizing them to enterprise companies. So this is a big deal. Like we're doing more and more work now on Shopify Plus, which is their enterprise offering. They do a really great job at the do-it-yourself or do it with a design freelancer. They've got that on board.
Small business market corner.
Tiny. They've got the hobbyist market. They've got all of that. They've got kind of a middle tier, the clicks and mortar type thing, if you will. And then they realized, a lot of enterprise are on just platforms that are in the way more than they help. Yeah. So they've got an organization within Shopify, that the Plus team, it's like a startup inside a startup. And they're trying to basically get every Magento and BigCommerce customer out there, and then even look beyond that to some of the bigger scales. And they get some traction. They're great at promoting. So as an agency, when we decided, hey, let's get into this partner program, we actually it took us a while. They started following us around with Google Ads everywhere we went, and we were tire kicking a bit. And eventually, I said, look, let's just try it. We had a bunch of I don't know. I think the one that finally made me snap was some kind of open source PHP shopping cart thing that you could bolt on to any of the popular PHP CMS platforms.
Right. I think I know that one.
Yeah, and I got a little bit, and I don't want to name names, and I'm sure they're nice people. Yeah. I finally snapped when I realized that they were basically running a loop that was firing off queries to go get details in the loop, and basically forcing a fairly sturdy server to run up against the memory limits all the time. And I realized, these guys probably need a huge refactor of their code base. They're probably doing something else to pay the bills right now. We can't have this. We're not going to write our own. And we finally said, okay, we'll try this hosted platform. So PCI compliance, really hard to do. They've got that covered. The fact that they market relentlessly is a benefit to partner agencies, because we show up and talking about Shopify, everyone's already heard about it, or they know somebody using it.
You're not trying to sell a client on some obscure platform.
No, yeah, exactly. And we don't have to play like the wizard, like, well, only we know the right way to do it. It's like, no, this is clearly, demonstrably a good way to do it. And we can talk about just, our expertise with the platform, and then the other things we do. We've connected it. We've worked with a number of complex integrations. And everyone says, what does that mean? Basically, you've got a system that isn't e-commerce but relates to e-commerce. So that's another part where we found people are wary at first. Says, well, we can't use it. We need to have it all custom on our own site because we built it ourselves because of X, this thing. So it's a learning management system was one example. So that's no problem. We'll just transact everything over here. It'll look at everything you're not doing. It's all just happening. The accounting department's happy, revenue's there. Marketing people can just market and try campaigns and experiments. Product people can do all of that. And we'll just make sure that after the transaction, all of your customers get into your LMS. And those kind of integrations, they're not as complex as they might sound at first, but there's always, devils in the details.
LMSs can be crazy too.
Oh yeah, well, there's event management, there's LMSs, there's a number of times where we've had to get a transaction to happen in Shopify and then have some other thing happen with a customer digitally. I mean, forget about all the cool stuff you can do when you actually ship goods to a customer. Like, that's brand extension right there. That box arrives. You've got their full undivided attention. All they're thinking about is that thing they bought from you. And they open the box, make it awesome. And, there's so many like YouTube videos showing unboxing and that, because it actually resonates with people. Oh, yeah. So that's a good opportunity for kind of like our design team to add value to clients too, where we say, hey, let's take a look at your packaging and what happens in those unboxing moments. So it complements, the skill set we've got in the business, but also the overall goals of our clients, where every touch point, is an opportunity to do something great. I think every agency in the world knows that. But connecting those dots and spelling that out for the clients is really easy with e-commerce. It's just more compelling to say, you're right, at that moment, we should do something extra special, go above and beyond.
So tangible, right?
Yeah. And they're literally not thinking about anything else other than you.
Yeah.
So, maybe...
That's a really smart way as a digital agency, because often digital agencies aren't looking to, design your posters and your brochures and stuff, but it's kind of a cool way to deliver an offline service that's part of the whole experience without, becoming a print agency.
Exactly. I mean, print's tricky. You need to be every bit as much of an expert as you do with code. Yeah. We've been fortunate enough to have some designers in our firm who've had experience in that, but print is expensive. When there's a mistake, it's usually an expensive mistake. Not to say there's no such thing as an expensive digital mistake, but generally speaking, you can head them off sooner.
There's a bit more of an undo.
There's much more of an undo. Instead of a complete redo. So, unfortunately, though, a lot of clients conflate all this stuff. They say, well, you do our e-commerce and our website, and you helped us with our brand to make sure it looked right everywhere on social media and all these things. Can you design our packaging now? And it's like, well, packaging's a highly specialized, discipline. And the truth is we actually do a little bit of that, and we're actually pretty good in certain areas, but we don't bite off more than we can chew that way. It's tough. You as much as you want to always, give the best service and best advice, Clients don't necessarily want to be sent elsewhere for specialists.
Yeah.
So, yeah, e-commerce though does open the door to all of that, because ultimately, some kind of good is going to be shipped unless it's a digital product that you're buying. So, deciding which platform to hitch your wagon to, so to speak, comes down to what the platform itself is doing. And I just felt like the Shopify crew really got that. They act a lot like the way Salesforce.com does. They create awareness. They create conditions where people want to be on their platform. They differentiate with their competition. And they shout out to their consultants relentlessly.
Which is great, because then you're, like you mentioned, you're not looking to build a totally local client base, because obviously it's tough in Halifax, Nova Scotia, to have 100% of your clients from here. That sort of opens you up to, it's like your door to the rest of the world in a lot of ways, because there's tons of people looking for Shopify experts.
Yeah, it's true, and we've found that people really don't seem to care as long as you communicate timely and your English is good.
Yeah.
Now, we have no clients in India or Asia or most European. I mean, we have a few French and German, and Swiss, but not. Their English is better than our French. So let's say.
Yeah, or a German.
Yeah, but UK is big. Australia, the US, and Canada. They all seem the platform seems well established in terms of awareness there, and I think Australians are used to dealing with people in different time zones. That's never been a problem. West Coast United States is probably one of the more rewarding but more challenging time zones. 4 hours, so their end of day, they're banging out stuff for you, and it's 9 o'clock, and you just get the kids to bed.
Yeah.
So
we get that a lot too with ours, and Australia even worse, because it's like 7 o'clock our time in the evening is like their 8 a.m. Yeah. So it's really tough to have calls. And
I haven't met an Australian yet who made it a problem.
Yeah.
I just assumed it's because they were used to everybody off their continent, being far away. I don't know. I can tell you, working in the UK is really a joy, because they go home before we do.
Yeah. But they're up early, so sometimes they're.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like 6 a.m. your time, and their days start.
But you've got time to deal with that. And usually what happens is you've delivered something overnight, and they wake up and go, wow, my day just started with something I wanted. Great.
Yeah.
So in December, we were doing 2 projects in California and 2 projects in London, England.
Wow.
So 8 time zones. It was interesting, but yeah, that's great. I mean, doing it from here, and we know there's some other agencies in Halifax here who've done a great job of basically being export companies by having all their clients be elsewhere. Yeah. And we'd like to do as much of that as we can too.
Totally. There's one thing I want to talk about before we go, which is the idea of recurring revenue. So it's like every agency's dream is to build up a recurring revenue stream. And you guys are starting to do it, or you have done it. Can you talk about how you've used the Shopify platform to your advantage to build in monthly recurring revenue?
Sure, yeah. So I guess on a couple of fronts. The most obvious one, we've built a couple of Shopify apps, and we have others in the works. And it's still early days, but basically these are our applications that extend Shopify's core functionality. So one of them is really boring software, but it's really great for business. So it's called Exportify, and it lets you export data from Shopify, which of course comes with its own export utilities, but it's standardized. So Exportify is essentially a way for merchants to predefine a format they need. Our service gets configured to do that, and then they can send off formatted order data to whatever other system they need, and we have some automations in that. So what's cool about it is, we build it basically because 3 clients all asked for similar things. And we thought, this will be good. It'll legitimize us a little bit more in the ecosystem. Hey, they've got an app. Hey, they're experts. Great. These guys are for real. And then through no promotion at all, just by having an app listing in the app marketplace with an accurate description of what it does and not even an explainer video yet, we're getting about a sign up a day. So this is, I think a modest monthly recurring fee that it stacks up fairly fast. It's led to a lot of cool relationships where people needed customizations, and so that's a good one. We have another app that's more specialized. It's a connector between Shopify and HubSpot, which is kind of a set it and forget it, and just go do all your marketing in HubSpot, and don't worry about all those e-commerce transactions having to be imported over. It's basically in a drip model in real time. So that one is actually cool. It's basically like a big pipe that just connects your Shopify customers directly into your HubSpot instance. And you don't need to think about, before we pull the trigger on this campaign, have we synced all the stuff over? Yeah. It's just handled.
So that's the whole HubSpot promise, I guess, is that you can measure the results of your inbound marketing. In this case, connecting it directly to sales, right?
Yeah, and behavior too. No one likes to be watched too much. But if I'm deciding to be a customer of a brand, I really like the idea that they're paying attention and they're not going to market to me in the wrong ways. And I think, used correctly, that's really the promise of that 360-degree marketing view. So we built Teleport, which is this thing that beams your customers from Shopify to HubSpot. And that's another cool one, basically recurring revenue. So those are kind of obvious. I guess the other one is we kind of productized a few services where for the clients who get it and realize that there's things that we should be doing for them and they shouldn't be doing themselves. We establish, reasonably priced retainer relationships essentially, and we make it easy to break up actually, so that people don't feel trapped. But that doesn't happen very often. So 2 kind of models there where we kind of continually support their success as consultants, but also with some of these products.
That's awesome. Man, I love everything that you're doing, and thank you for stopping in live and talking with me.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, it's great. Glad to do it. Love what you guys are doing too. We should talk more about Proposify sometime. But
yeah,
okay.
Sometime off air.
Okay, cool.
People are used to us just blabbing on about ourselves on the show.
Business.
Yeah. No, thanks again, Aaron, and hope the listeners enjoyed that. And we will link to ablesense.com.
Yeah, ablesense.com. That's us.
Check them out. If you use Shopify, definitely check out the apps that you guys have built. And I'm sure, do you have links?
Yeah, we sure do. And you can just find us directly on the Shopify app store and all that stuff too. So
cool.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Great. Thanks,
all
Kyle.
right, thanks. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you covered for me on that one.
So hope you enjoyed that interview. I say in a very non-specific way.
Kind of bummed I wasn't in the interview, but, that's great.
Yes. It was good, I'm sure. I'm sure it will be. I just blown up the illusion.
All right, you just gave the cat out of the bag. Come on.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed that interview. And until then, we hope that you will rate and review us on the iTunes Store. Also, get in touch with us if you would like to be featured as a guest on Agencies Drinking Beer, or if you have any questions you would like us to answer on the show. Bye for now.
Later.